No one told you this so clearly, but if you are here listening to this, it is not a coincidence, because there are moments in life when evil does not come head on. It comes silently, it seeps into your rest, into your body, into your relationships. And when you realize that something is not right, you have already been carrying a weight that is not yours for weeks, months, even years. And the most dangerous thing is not that weight itself, but that you get used to living with it, thinking it is normal, thinking that this is life, thinking that you have no right to defend yourself. But today that ends, because there is a truth that very few dare to tell you this way. And when you understand it, nothing will ever be the same again. Because tell me something, have you ever felt that since you had an argument with a certain person, everything started to go wrong, but not all at once, rather little by little, as if someone had placed an invisible hand on your destiny and was slowly tightening it? You sleep poorly, things break, money disappears without explanation, peace vanishes, and the worst part is that you can't find a cause. Logic, but deep down, you know something doesn't add up. And you know it because it's not the first time that human beings have faced this, even though today they make us believe that everything is psychological, that everything is coincidence, that everything is bad luck, but it's not. And when you understand why, you will also understand why frozen salt is not just any ritual. For centuries, the oldest cultures understood something that we have deliberately forgotten today. Because those who forget how to defend themselves spiritually become easy to manipulate. They knew that every intention has a destination, that every energy seeks to manifest, and that when someone wishes you harm, that wish doesn't just float in the air waiting to disappear. It moves, travels, seeks a body, a mind, a life to anchor itself to, and if you don't find resistance, enter. But here's what no one explains to you. If it finds a limit, if it finds a shield, it doesn't just stop, it returns. And it returns with the exact same force with which it was sent. Not because you decide it, but because that's how the laws governing the invisible work. And this is where many get confused, because they believe that defending oneself spiritually is the same as seeking revenge. But it is not. Revenge arises from the ego, from the desire to cause harm, from the impulse to punish. But defense arises from something much deeper. It arises from the natural right to preserve your life, your balance, your path. When an animal is attacked, it doesn't ask whether it's moral to bite to save itself. It simply does it. And on the spiritual plane, the same thing happens, only they taught us to feel guilty for protecting ourselves, to confuse passivity with kindness and patience with resignation. But there is a line, and crossing it has consequences, because when you don't defend yourself, you are not being more spiritual. You are allowing injustice to take root. You are giving silent consent to energetic abuse, and that, although it may sound harsh, makes you an accomplice to your own wear and tear. And I'm not saying this to blame you, I'm saying it to wake you up, because no one taught you this before, and yet it is written deep within your being. That's why something inside you activates when you hear about protection, restitution, boundaries. It's not fear, it's memory. And this is where salt comes in, that element everyone has at home and that has been despised as something common, as something without power. But the ordinary, when understood, becomes extraordinary. Salt not only preserves bodies, it also preserves boundaries. Not only does it clean wounds, but it also cleans intentions. It doesn't just purify food, it also purifies paths. And when it is combined with cold, with absolute stillness, with freezing, something happens that ancient traditions understood perfectly. It stops the movement of evil. But before telling you how, I have to tell you why it works, because if you don't understand this, everything else becomes an empty gesture. Look, when someone sends you a negative intention, it doesn't matter if they do it consciously or not. It doesn't matter if they go to a witch, if they pray for you, to whether it goes wrong, or if it simply hates you in silence every night before going to sleep. Intention is directed energy, and that energy, like all energy, needs a place to discharge. If you are open, emotionally vulnerable, spiritually unprotected, that energy finds cracks and enters. But if you are sealed, aware, aligned, that energy cannot stay, and then something inevitable happens. It returns to its point of origin, not because you push it, but because it has nowhere to anchor itself. It's like throwing an arrow against a steel wall. The arrow doesn't just float, it bounces. And the one who shot it can't complain about the hit because he was the one who decided to shoot. And here is something crucial you need to remember. Returning is not sending. To return is to reflect, and the reflection does not generate negative karma because it does not arise from the intention to harm, but from the intention to protect. That's why this ritual doesn't work for people who want to use it out of whim, envy, jealousy, or simple anger. It doesn't work because there's no defense there. There is an attack, and the universe perfectly distinguishes between one and the other. But when someone has already crossed you, when they have already harmed you, when they have already interfered in your life with bad intentions, then activating the return is not only legitimate, it is necessary, because if you don't do it, the energy stagnates in your field and the stagnant rots. I have seen too many times how good people, sensitive people, spiritual people get sick, not due to a lack of faith, but due to an excess of tolerance. Tolerance to abuse, tolerance to attack, tolerance to wear and tear. And the body, which is the final messenger, ends up speaking through pain. But before getting there, there are always signs, recurring problems, causeless obstacles, conflicts that arise out of nowhere. And when all that begins after a betrayal, a breakup, a strong dispute, it is not coincidence, it is consequence. I clearly remember the case of an elderly woman, and I'm not talking about a distant or exaggerated story. I'm talking about something I saw with my own eyes. A simple woman, without esoteric knowledge, without interest in rituals, who suddenly began to lose everything, her health, her stability, the harmony of her family. I didn't understand what was happening, but I felt it. That heavy feeling upon waking, that knot in the chest, that silent certainty that someone was hurting her. And when she told me about a neighbor with whom she had had a serious conflict, something clicked, not because I believed in unfounded suspicion, but because the pattern was clear. When she performed the ritual, not from the hatred, but from the desperate need to protect his life, something changed. Not immediately, not like a movie magic trick, but in the way truth always acts. First silence, then movement. And when the energy returned to its origin, it was not a punishment, it was a balance being restored. And the most important thing was not what happened to the other person, but what stopped happening to her. The burden was lifted, the weight was removed, the path reopened. And this is where I want you to pay attention, because what comes next is delicate. The ritual of frozen salt is not a game, it is not superstition, it is not something done lightly, it is a declaration. It's telling the universe this far. It's about setting a non-negotiable energetic boundary. But for it to work, you must do it from the right place, because intention is not a detail, it's the engine. Without clear intention, there is no effect. Without awareness, there is no protection. That's why before even touching the salt, there is something you must understand about yourself, and it is this. You are weak. If you were, you wouldn't be listening to this now. You are not a helpless victim, even though they made you feel that way, and you are not alone, even though the attack was silent. There are laws that support you, forces that respond when you act justly, and boundaries that activate when you decide to stop enduring. But there is also a warning I must give you now, before we continue, because many people get lost here. This ritual is not to satisfy the ego, it is not to win, it is not to see falling for others. If you enter it with that mindset, you are putting yourself in the wrong place. The right place is this one. I do not attack, I defend myself. I do not wish harm, I reject harm, I do not pursue, I close doors. And that difference, although it may seem subtle, changes everything, because the universe does not listen to words, it listens to coherence, it does not listen to what you say, it listens to where you say it from. And when that coherence exists, protection activates in a way that doesn't need noise. Evil simply does not, finds access, freezes, stops, loses strength, and when it loses strength, it can no longer hold itself away from its origin. In the next moment, I will explain exactly how that limit is constructed, why the cold is as important as salt, and what really happens when you place that container in the freezer, even though it seems like a simple gesture. But before we get there, you need to understand something even deeper, something that almost no one explains, and that makes the difference between those who survive spiritually and those who, they just endure waiting for everything to pass by itself. Because it doesn't just happen, it never did. And just when you think you know enough, the uncomfortable question appears, the one that separates those who break free from those who repeat cycles. And that question is the one we are going to face next, because it determines whether this ritual will be a final point or just another attempt. The question that separates those who finally get free from those who remain trapped is not how to perform the ritual, nor what type of salt to use, nor even when to place it in the freezer. The question is, are you really willing to confront your own energy and your deepest emotions? Because there is no external ritual that works if there is no internal clarity. You cannot return the evil if you do not first recognize what that evil has done to you, what it has left in your body, in your mind, in your heart. And this is where many people fail. They focus on the external action, the salt, the paper, the container, the water. They do everything correctly, but they forget to look toward inside, and the universe notices it. And when the universe notices it, the ritual loses its power. You need to be present, aware, and feel every word, every gesture, every intention. Before writing the names of those who have hurt you, you must allow yourself to feel what that hurt caused. Betrayal, anger, sadness, fear. Do not suppress anything, because though these emotions are the fuel that activates protection. But be careful. It is not fuel to take revenge. It is fuel to restore yourself, to close the doors, so that your energy return to you clean and strong. And when you finally write those names on the paper and fold the paper away from you, it is not just a simple physical gesture. It is symbolic and energetic. You are sending a clear message. Everything that was sent to me returns to its origin. Now, when you place that paper inside the container and cover it with coarse salt, you must visualize something more than purification. You should visualize how each grain absorbs and neutralizes the negative energy, how each crystal turns into an invisible shield that protects you, and that at the same time acts as a mirror that reflects any ill intention back. Salt not only blocks, not only cleanses, salt transforms destructive energy into something that cannot affect you. And when combined with water, which represents the flow of life, that power multiplies. And this is where many people underestimate the process. Water is not just a liquid, it is a conductor. It is the pathway through which energy moves in an orderly manner, where everything that will freeze will not remain static for you, but rather it will be trapped for those who sent it. When you declare, "I freeze the ability of my enemies to harm me," you are not uttering empty words. You are activating a universal principle. What is directed toward you with the intention of harm cannot manifest in your life. And if it cannot manifest in your life, it must return to the one who sent it. That return is neither coincidence nor revenge. It is balance. It is law. It is justice. That does not wait for courts, lawyers, or human permissions. Place the container. In the freezer, it is not the end, but the beginning of a process. While it freezes, a protective field is activated that strengthens with each passing hour. Every day that the ice remains intact, your defense becomes more solid. The return of evil to its origin becomes firmer. And you don't need to review, you don't need to open it or touch it, because the energy works silently, precisely, impartially. Every external action you have taken up to this point is aligned with something greater, with a law that does not depend on your complete understanding, but of your coherence and your intention. But after the ritual, the true test begins in your daily life. First, you will feel the release within you, that lightness you had long forgotten, that deep breath that seemed impossible. You will sleep better. Your mind will clear. The relationships that were charged with tension will begin to ease. And then, almost without expecting it, you will notice changes around you. conflicts that seemed immovable begin to resolve. Obstacles that before blocked your path disappear. And the most impressive thing is, you are likely to see consequences for those who wished you ill. None of this is chance. None of this is black magic against others. Everything is the law of return at work. But here's another crucial point that few will tell you. Your protection does not end with a ritual, it is just a catalyst. The true defense comes from your internal connection with the divinity, with the light, with the energy that does not run out. After the ritual, do not go back to being passive. Pray, strengthen your spirit. Keep your mind clear, clean your home and your energetic environment. Use salt in the corners, light incense, raise your vibration through music, positive thoughts, conscious words. Because if you allow negativity to re-enter your life, you will reopen the door you just closed. And this is where many people stumble, confusing forgiveness with permissiveness. Forgiving does not mean allowing someone to continue harming you. Forgiving means letting go of the emotional burden that ties you to your enemy. It means freeing your heart while keeping your shield intact. When you perform this ritual from conscious forgiveness, from a place of legitimate protection and not resentment, your energy strengthens. You are not feeding evil with your hatred. You are affirming your right to live in peace. And that is the key that transforms a ritual into a true act of spiritual justice. Remember also that defending yourself is not selfishness. Defending yourself is tuning in with the universal balance, with the harmony that keeps life just when humans fail in their judgments. The universe always responds to those who act with coherence and purpose. When someone sends witchcraft, curses, or negative energies toward you, and you activate this ritual correctly, you are not doing harm. You are restoring the balance that someone else broke. It's the only way for the energy to return to its source without contaminating you. Let me tell you another real case that illustrates this to the perfection. An elderly man, successful all his life, watched as his world crumbled after the betrayal of a partner who also hired witchcraft against him. He suffered accidents, financial losses, and spiritual weariness that left him on the brink of despair. When he applied this ritual and other protection methods, he not only stopped the negative influence, but also began to regain his strength and clarity. In a few weeks, the effects of the witchcraft on his life dissipated, and without seeking or desiring it, the aggressor began to face unexpected consequences. That's not revenge, it's the law of return at work, and most importantly, he regained his peace. In the next few moments, I will explain to you step by step how to perform the salt freezing ritual so that you too can protect your life, return what was sent to you, and restore your path in peace. But first, I want you to absorb this. The strength of this ritual is not in the salt, nor in the ice, nor in the paper, but in you, in your intention, in your awareness, in your ability to stay in the light while the negative energy returns to its originator. If you understand it that way, you are ready. If not, any external action will just be an empty gesture. And believe me, once you understand this, there's no turning back. You cannot ignore your power, you cannot ignore your right to defend yourself, and you cannot allow anyone to make you feel defenseless again. What follows will be the first concrete step to activate your protection and return all harm to its origin. And after that, nothing will be the same in your life or in the way you face the negativity that others try to send you. If you want, I can continue with the part where I teach you the step-by-step procedure of the ritual, exactly how you should do it for it to work powerfully and safely. When you reach this point, you are no longer listening out of curiosity. You are here because something within you recognized the truth before your mind could explain it. And that is important because this ritual does not respond to doubt, it responds to decision. It doesn't work when you try to see what happens. It works when you declare that it has been enough, when your energy stops asking for permission to exist in peace. That's why before moving a single object, before touching the room, there is a change that must occur within you, and that change is silent but definitive. Start with the space, not because the place has power in itself, but because your mind needs it. When you physically clean the place, when you sweep, when you organize, you are telling your subconscious that you are closing a cycle, that you are preparing ground for something different. And that message is crucial because the body and mind must align before the energy responds. If you have a white candle, light it, not as a theatrical act, but as a sign of intention. The light does not combat darkness by fighting against it. It simply dissolves it by being present. Then close your eyes and breathe. Not quickly, not with anxiety, but deeply, as if each breath were reclaiming something that was taken from you. In that moment, ask of protección, not out of fear, but desde la certeza. No ruegues. Afirma que estás acompañada, que no estás sola, que no estás actuando desde la sombra, sino desde la justicia, porque este ritual no se hace desde la oscuridad, se hace desde la luz, y esa diferencia lo cambia todo. Ahora toma el papel blanco. No es un papel cualquiera, es un testigo. Cuando escribes los nombres o cuando escribes la frase que engloba a todos aquellos que te han dañado, no lo hagas con prisa. Cada letra es una descarga. Cada palabra es un reconocimiento. Aquí no se trata de